Hey YouTube, it's Eric. This video I'm just going to be highlighting interesting fact if you're not aware of it, but it's the guy. His name is John McShain. Right here, you can see. I thought I had a picture of him up here. There he is here. You see, there's a picture of John McShain with Scottish Rite Freemason Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a younger cousin of the Roman Catholic Archbishop of Newark, James Roosevelt Bailey. Roosevelt put the United States into a permanent state of national emergency with the Emergency Banking Act of March 9th, 1933. And Roosevelt, you can see a photo of him literally laughing it up with Father Robert Ignatius Gannon, S.J., the president of Fordham University in 1940. But this is John McShain here with Roosevelt. But this guy is kind of like a man in black who, and this is just further proof that the Vatican is in full control of the United States. You know, if you read it, the Jesuits actually created America. You know, that's the basis of Tupper Saucy's book, The Rulers of Evil. That's why the first mayor of Washington, Robert Brent, was the nephew of Jesuit priest John Carroll, who founded Georgetown. Imagine that. The first mayor of Washington, the first mayor of Washington, Robert Brent, is the literal nephew of Jesuit priest John Carroll. Here's the quote from the authoritative Appleton's Encyclopedia on American Biography, on the quote from Jesuit John Carroll, the excerpt from him on the biography. You see, no greater power of combined wealth, intellect, and enthusiasm existed anywhere in America than the union of the Carrolls and the Jesuits in Maryland, in the person of John Carroll. All the Carrolls were slave traders. That's how they possessed vast landed estates in the province prior to the Revolution. The reason, a good reason for that is because all of the Carrolls, like the good Jesuits they are, believed in chattel slavery and profiting off of human trafficking and slavery. But you see here, John McShain is the man who built Washington. You see, this guy actually designed, he built the Pentagon. He built the Shrine of the Immaculate Conception, the Roosevelt Library, for instance. Like, the list is huge. Like, it's and you know, I tried to find a copy of this book, this biography right here, The Man Who Built Washington: A Life of John McShain, and the cheapest copy is like $460. That's the cheapest copy. But you see, John McShain was papal knighted and Jesuit trained. This guy was I recommend you check out the videos I did on Father Felix Morlian on Pro Dio. I got the video I titled was who is affiliated with Pro Dio in America, and Father Felix Morlian was used in Vatican diplomatic relations with Russia. You should also check out the video I did on the Papal Knight Frank Folsom, who is the chairman, CEO of the Radio Corporation of America. Frank Folsom was Jesuit trained, papal knighted, a personal personal advisor to the Pope, and Frank Folsom was a member of the Bohemian Club. But here I found, this is John McShain's New York Times obituary here from 1989. John McShain, 90, constructor of Pentagon and Kennedy Center. And you notice how, like, the Pentagon is actually modeled off of the Palazzo Farnese in Caporolo, Italy. And the Farnese family, it was Pope Paul III of Farnese, Alessandro Farnese, who signed the Jesuit order into existence with the papal bull Regimini Militanis Ecclesiae, September 27th, 1540. But the Pentagon itself is modeled off of this Jesuit war room, the Villa Farnese. And why do you think now, like, the United States, like the United States Army has a Catholic archdiocese in it? There's the archdiocese for the military services. What Jewish organization has any resemblance of power like that? Tell me, what a joke. You can see here, like, the Pentagon is actually modeled off of a Jesuit war room, and how fitting that the guy who designed the Pentagon was a Jesuit trained papal knight. We see here John McShain, the contractor and developer who erected several important public buildings in Washington, including the Pentagon, the State Department building, and the Jefferson Memorial. And it's interesting on Washington, it's interesting that a Jesuit priest, William Matthews, S.J., was the first director of the Washington public school system and the Washington Public Library. Imagine that, a Jesuit priest created the Washington Public Library and the Washington Public Schools. Continuing, so John McShain designed the Pentagon, the State Department building, and the Jefferson Memorial. He died of a stroke on September 9th in Killarney, Ireland. He was 90 years old. His company, John McShain Inc., one of the largest construction contractors in the country in the years before and after the World War II, was based in Philadelphia, where his projects included the original Philadelphia International Airport, the Naval Hospital, the Municipal Courthouse, and the State Office Building. In 1939, President Franklin D. Roosevelt, you saw a photo of them together, having observed Mr. McShane's work in Washington, invited the contractor, a staunch Republican. You see, the Democrats and Republicans controlled by the Vatican, both sides, you know. So Roosevelt, is supposed a Democrat, has a staunch Republican, devout Catholic, Jesuit-trained Papist, John McShain, ask John McShain to build the Roosevelt Library in Hyde Park, New York. Other post-war projects on which Mr. McShain worked were the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. And after the Jesuits murdered John F. Kennedy through the CIA, the FBI, and the DIA, they named a few, buildings after him. They actually did the same kind of insidious thing they did with Abraham Lincoln after they murdered him with the devout Catholic John Wilkes Booth. Dr. Samuel A. Mudd, who helped Booth escape, went to Jesuit Georgetown. John Surratt went to Jesuit Georgetown. Jesuit Georgetown University alumni were at the trial of John Surratt, one of the chief conspirators in the Lincoln assassination, who fled America disguised as a Catholic priest through Montreal, and then went to Rome to join the Papal Zouaves. And what was his attorney? William Merrick, John Surratt's attorney, went to Jesuit Georgetown. I think his name is William Merrick. He's actually related to the William Matthews S.J. priest I talked about, who founded the public library. Let me just find that here for you quick, but that's just an interesting side fact. Merrick, I just want to get the guy's first name. Richard T. Merrick. Yeah, Richard T. Merrick. This was John Surratt's lawyer who went to Georgetown. You see, and his uncle, William Matthews, was the president of Georgetown College. And this guy William Matthews was the first president of the Washington Public Library, which he actually, he bought that property from a Masonic lodge. But I thought the Catholic Church was enemies with the Masons. And then William Matthews also became the first president of the Washington Public School System. Imagine that. Okay, but you see here, and then in 1951, a Papist, John McShain, renovated the White House, which is named after the Jesuit priest Andrew White, the Apostle of Maryland. And I'll show you the guy who actually designed the White House, James Hoban, was a Catholic. You see him on the screen there. And I actually found an article where the Catholic transcript boasts about how two Catholics have been the two official architects to build and renovate the White House. How fitting. So in addition to his construction work, Mr. McShain was a major property owner in Philadelphia, where he served as head of the zoning commission from 1936 to 1952, giving lots of zoning properties for the Roman Catholic Church to build all sorts of schools, churches, orphanages, nurseries, etc. His Philadelphia holdings included the Barclay Hotel, where he lived. In the 1950s, Mr. McShain entered thoroughbred racing, establishing the Barclay Stable in the United States and Ireland, and entering horses into major races in Britain and France as well. His colt Ballymoss, Europe's champion horse of 1958, won the Irish Derby in the Prix de l'Arc Triomphe. If I'm pronouncing that right. The same year, his filly Gladness won the Ascot Gold Cup in England. So, like a good elite aristocrat, he's into horse racing. I shit you not, all the elites seem to be into horse racing and like the opera. Continuing, Mr. McShain, a native of Philadelphia, was a prominent Roman Catholic layman. He sure was. He was a papal chamberlain. You see, Frank Folsom, the chairman of Radio Corporation of America, was also a papal chamberlain. Hitler's vice chancellor during the bloody Third Reich, Franz von Papen, was also a papal chamberlain. And Franz von Papen, Hitler's vice chancellor, is also a knight of Malta, like Joseph McShain. And McShain, he was a Knight of Malta, Papal Chamberlain, a Knight of the Grand Cross of the Holy Sepulchre as well. Mr. McShain spent summers for the last 3 decades of his life at his Irish estate in the Catholic fortress of Ireland. He is survived by his wife, the former Mary Hortsman, a daughter, sister Pauline Mary of the Roman Catholic Society of the Holy Child Jesus of Rome. So his daughter became a nun, and two half brothers, Joseph of Farmington, Connecticut, and William of Philadelphia. So this was the Times obituary. You can see just from reading the Times obituary, you see the man who built Washington was a devout Catholic. He wasn't a Jew. He was a devout Catholic. He wasn't Muslim either. You see, there's a lot of propaganda out there saying like the Muslim Brotherhood is controlling the United States. That's coming from guys like Jesuit trained Frank Gaffney with the Center of Security Policy. Here's an article here from the Clarion Herald. This one's illustrated here. Oh, where was this? Give me a second. I think it was on the first page. Where did that go? Give me a second here. I had an illustrated article up. Okay, it's not that one. It's not that one either. Okay, bear with me here. This website's actually can be a goldmine of research here. The Catholic News Service. I had this page up. I apologize. You said John McShain. Okay, here it is here. This is the illustrated article. So here's a photo of him, John McShain. Apologize for the little delay there. There this guy actually built the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. This is the biggest Catholic church in North America. It's in Washington, D.C. Jesuits control Washington, D.C. They got Georgetown University there and the Catholic University of America. This is the biggest Catholic cathedral in all of North America. And it was built by John McShain, you see right here. But this article is in the Clarion Herald, August 22nd, 1963, titled The Fabulous Builder, John McShain. This is written by Catholic priest Reverend Vincent J. Dunigan. See, some people would say that John McShain is the man who built Washington, D.C. While this is only partly true, he has certainly made a lasting impression on the nation's capital. Both sides of the Potomac River are banked with buildings by McShain. He has built the world-famous Pentagon and the beautiful Jefferson Memorial, among others, in the chief city of our country. While the original city was planned and laid out by the Frenchman, Major Pierre Charles L'Enfant, a Roman Catholic Freemason, and if you read Tupper Saucy's book, Rulers of Evil, it was actually the Jesuit priest John Carroll, S.J., who founded Georgetown, who commissioned Roman Catholic Freemason, the architect Pierre Charles L'Enfant, to lay out the plans for Washington, D.C. And the Congressional Capitol building was on the property that belonged to Jesuit-trained Daniel Carroll, related to John Carroll, S.J. It has been the Philadelphian John McShain who has given it much of its present form and beauty, that being of Washington, with complete truth that has been said that no builder of this generation can touch his record. So look at that. No single construction firm has built so many historic structures as the firm headed by the 63-year-old McShain. Besides the gigantic Pentagon, the world's largest office building with 3 times more space than the Empire State Building. The Empire State Building was financed and funded and contracted out by Papal Knights Alfred E. Smith and John J. Raskob. McShain seems to have a stranglehold on a good section of the Washington skyline. He built the General Accounting Office, the new State Department headquarters, the Washington National Airport, the Bethesda Naval Hospital, and the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. Just the real estate value alone of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception, I bet, is at over $100 million. I had a photo of it up here. Here's a photo of it. This thing is ginormous. This is right in the heart of Washington, D.C. You know, it's almost like New Rome. You know, that should be the new name for Washington, New Rome. And that's actually Washington used to be called Rome on the Potomac before it got its name Washington. George Washington called the Jesuit Leonard Neal, S.J., to his deathbed. George Washington gave a copy of the Catholic novel Don Quixote to Don Diego de Gardaquí, the first Spanish ambassador to the United States, who, through his Catholic banking house, the Gardaquí Banking House, financed the entire American Revolutionary Army. And actually, the devout Catholic Charles Carroll of Carrollton, S.J., or Charles Carroll, Jesuit trained, he was one of the Catholic signers on the Declaration of Independence, but it was Charles Carroll also bankrolled the American Revolutionary Army. And Catholic France and Catholic Spain came to America's aid, because America from day one has been designed to be the sword arm of the Catholic Church. America has only not been at war for like 17 years of its entire existence. You see here, this is in Washington, D.C. This is might as well be, this is, looks like, St. Peter's Square. This is in Washington. This was built by John McShain. So I think the real estate value of this is probably looking at over $100 million, at least. Probably more. Okay, but continuing here. You see, the vast and delicate renovation of the White House was entrusted to McShain, and now he has thrown the domes in the tower of the National Marian Shrine into the heavens. This is written by a Catholic priest here, this article, Vincent Dunigan. You see here, for God and for country would stem to surprise the practical demonstration and application of McShain's talent. You see here, it's understood that for the honor of doing both jobs, he underbid some of the largest construction firms in the country. A native of Philadelphia, this fabulous builder and his wife, the former Mary Hortzman, reside at the Barclay Hotel, which he is president, in the city of brotherly love. Their only child, Pauline, is a nun in the Society of the Holy Child of Jesus. That was brought up in the Times article. It is difficult to walk about the city without bumping into a building resting on a McShain cornerstone. You see, this guy was actually used as a personal envoy to President Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1957 when the president of Ireland came to the United States. and I'll show you this. I put this on my blog. Dwight D. Eisenhower shamelessly went to Georgetown University in 1958 and was just sucking up to the Jesuits there at Georgetown. Literally sucking up to them. I'll show you that here. I got some of the info up on some different tabs. You see here, he designed the International Airport, the State Office Building, the Board of Education Building, and the Willis Eye Hospital are just a few of the many McShain's additions to that city. That being Philadelphia. Churches, convents, and colleges dotting the Philadelphia area bear the impact and imprint of his construction. The Paul Bunyan of the building trade twists the tale of time until each second screams, ouch. Leisure is a luxury that must not be wasted. A president of the Atlantic City Transportation Company and director of 2 Philadelphia banking institutions, McShain finds time to serve on the board of trustees at Catholic LaSalle College, Catholic Rosemont College, and the Misericordia Hospital. That's probably Catholic. The Catholic University of America and Jesuit Georgetown University he serves on the board of. While this magician of moving machinery gathers no moss, he certainly has acquired a fine polish, a happy, useful, and agreeable diversion that minimizes the martyrdom of monotony and rut of routine that plagues many men in his active participation in the Men of Malverna Retreat Association. So the Men of Malverna Retreat Association. This is probably an association that goes to, the Jesuits have 28 retreat houses in the United States, all worth probably all worth at least $20 million on real estate value alone. But the Jesuits have 28 retreat houses in the United States. If you read the book, The FBI and the Catholic Church by Steve Rossum, you see that the FBI actually, from the year 1935 onward, the FBI would routinely send hundreds of agents every year to the Jesuit retreat houses. And the FBI was founded by a devout Roman Catholic, Charles Joseph Bonaparte, who viewed non-Catholics as heretics. But you see that the McShain, this is probably a Jesuit retreat association right here. You see, even his horses caught up in the tempo of the McShain family motto, swift and bold. His interest in horse racing started merely as a hobby to offset the quote, all work, no play, rust and dust that can seep into a soul and take its toll. But soon the Barclay Stables colors, red and white, were a familiar sight in the winner's circle, with such thoroughbreds as Polly's Jet and Ballymoss. And the Times article covered that. A couple of this guy's horses won the World Cup. The owner thinks that while his horses are swift, they are sometimes too bold when they swing out on a turn before the home stretch. And this goes into some of his Catholic knighthoods here. The recipient of many honorary degrees, his accomplishments as a Catholic layman have also received papal recognition. Pope Pius XII, well, I'll show you, Pope Pius XII went to Jesuit Georgetown and got an honorary degree just like Dwight Eisenhower did a year before Eisenhower in 1957. I'll show you a photo of that from the Georgetown magazine that has Eisenhower with the bust of Edmund Walsh, S.J., on the cover of that magazine. I'll show you that after this. But you see, the recipient of many honorary degrees, McShane's accomplishment as a Catholic layman have also received papal recognition. Pope Pius XII appointed him Knight Commander of the Order of St. Gregory the Great in 1950. So there's another knighthood that the Times didn't mention that. So McShain now, I've counted it, has 4 knighthoods. The following year, he was named a Papal Chamberlain of the Cape and Sword. In 1952, became a Knight of Malta and a Knight of the Holy Sepulchre. He was named a Knight Commander in 1954 and a Knight of the Grand Cross in 1956. Would you look at that? Mr. McShain is one who usually, and these are some of the photos of the buildings he designed. This is the guy that designed the Pentagon, the Jefferson Memorial, the remodeled White House, named after Jesuit priest Andrew White, the Bethesda Naval Hospital, and the Washington National Airport. But it's the Jews, right, that control America? What a joke. You see, he has seen the finishing touches put to many of his buildings and the reason to be proud of them, but there is no building in his entire career which he is prouder than the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington. He has never been able to hide the fact that, and guys, like the apotheosis of George Washington, that was drawn by the papal artist Bernudi. I forget his first name, but you can look up the apotheosis of Washington. George Washington is actually, I think it's the Washington's in the center, but the Virgin Mary is kind of in a pose like this behind Washington, with the Roman fasces in her hand on the official George Washington apotheosis. Okay, so it's it's pretty clear in plain sight. Just the media and the shill historians have done such a great job of just not talking about this at all, just avoiding the question altogether of Rome. But he has never been able to hide the fact that he was thrilled at having been selected as the builder of the great national shrine to Mary, the Mother of God. Would you look at that? Yes, this goes into some of the building statistics. I'm not going to finish this whole article, so I want to get to some of the other stuff. But you see, like, no one talks about this builder here. Like, no one seems to talk about him. Hey, how's it going, guys? Paul McCartney was knighted. Oh, interesting. Well, but the Beatles, Lauren, the 5th Beatle, Sir George Martin, I believe he was the manager of the Beatles. But the 5th Beatle, Sir George Martin, actually went to Jesuit St. Ignatius College. Literally, the 5th Beatle, the guy who got the Beatles onto the map, was Jesuit trained. Like, how fitting was that? But you see here, this article is from the Catholic News Service, December 1957. National Shrine builders cited for outstanding service to Mother of God. See, Boston architect Eugene F. Kennedy Jr. and Philadelphia John McShain were cited as, quote, outstanding Catholic leaders during the presentation of the 1957 Marianist Award of the University of Dayton. See, this John McShain was just given award after award after award by the Catholic Church. For their work in building the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, Mr. Kennedy and Mr. McShain shared the 8-year-old award. The shrine was called the Religious Monument. Quote, the best man has to offer artistically and culturally to honor the Mother of God, end quote. Father John A. Albrecht, Superior of the Cincinnati Province of the Society of Mary, the Marianists, presented the award to Mr. Kennedy and Mr. McShain. The citation was read by Father Andrew L. Siebold, the Society of Mary, president of the University of Dayton. The University of Dayton is a Marianist school. Just like how Fordham University is a Jesuit school, St. Bonaventure University is a Franciscan school, but they're all ultimately controlled by the Catholic Church in Rome at the end of the day. The president of the university, Father Andrew L. Siebold, read the citation at the student convocation of the Dayton canvass. Referring to the shrine, the award expressed the hope that, quote, this superlative shrine to Our Lady, quote, might inspire and stimulate all the world. Really? So, like, are all the pedophilia scandals that are ravaging throughout the Catholic Church inspiring the world? Because was it inspiring to the world when the Catholic Church absolutely said nothing condemning Adolf Hitler? Absolutely nothing after they signed a concordat with him in 1933. Not once did the Pope ever say anything against Adolf Hitler. But yeah, they're going to inspire us to do the right thing, right? They took part in the Rwandan genocide in 1994. The Pope even came out and had a pathetic apology for that. They took part in the genocide in Croatia during the 1940s. But yeah, they're going to inspire us, right? They massacred 700,000 Serbs in 3 years just because it was a crime not to be Catholic. But they'll inspire us. We see they'll inspire us and stimulate all the world, and more especially all of us in America, to realize a richer and more pervasive knowledge, love, and service of the Immaculate Virgin, the principal patroness of our land. See, so the United States, the Virgin Mary is the patron of the United States now, it looks like. Each has earned singular recognition from the Church. As professional men, they work in the areas of contractual agreements, where they both won competitive honors as well as the esteem and respect of their peers. Each has risen over the years to head the firm that he represents, McGinnis and Walsh and Kennedy Architects and John McShain Inc. Builders. Their record of separate achievements includes evidence of national and international acclaim indicative of their dedicated religious spirit are the numerous churches, schools, and hospitals, as well as Catholic colleges and university buildings among their undertakings, and the award said. Father Siebold pointed out that the records of the two award winners reveal a sense of responsibility and dedication to their separate professions and respect for ethical integrity. This year marked the first time that the Marianist Award, the highest religious honor of the university, has been presented to two persons. The award was established in 1950 to commemorate the triple centenary of the founding of the Marianists to the United States, the death of their founder, Father William Joseph Chaminade, and the founding of the University of Dayton by the Marianists. So I'm going to link all these sources here. But you can see here, you see the Catholic transcript from 1958 boasts how the White House, which is named after a Jesuit priest, Father Andrew White, the Apostle of Maryland, the White House was actually designed by a Catholic. How fitting. You see here, Washington, D.C., it is a never-ending source of pride for our Americans of Irish extraction that one of their number designed the White House, the home of the U.S. presidents, for 150 years. Architect James Hoban was born in Dublin in 1957. He was educated there and recorded that he won a medal in the art competition in Dublin in 1781. Shortly after that, he came to the United States. He went directly to Charleston, South Carolina, where he designed a state house, later destroyed by fire, and private residences. You see, this guy is a Catholic, though, from Ireland. The Catholic press is announcing that he is Catholic. Okay. So they mentioned John McShain here. So some 9 years ago, 1951, when the White House was found to be in need of reconstruction, a Catholic builder, John McShain, was retained by the government to handle the $5.7 million project. John Hoban, what was it here? Okay, so James Hoban, okay, I got John and James on. James Hoban was an attendant at the old St. Patrick Church in the city and is buried in Mount Olivet Cemetery there. He died in 1830 at the age of 74. Okay, so the architect of the White House is buried in a Catholic cemetery, which alludes to him being Catholic. But imagine that the two guys who actually have done the two times that the U.S. government has modeled the White House, Roman Catholics have been the architects. James Hoban and John McShain. Is that a coincidence, you think? Okay, this was the University of Dayton here. And I read this one. This was from the Clarion Herald. Okay, so this was an article here from this looked like here that an archbishop, the Oak Knoll School of the Holy Child. That's obviously a Catholic school here. This is from the Catholic Advocate. This is a newspaper for an archdiocese, I believe. I'm not sure what diocese. This could be the Washington Archdiocese newspaper, I believe. It's a Catholic source. But continuing here, so you see here, John McShain was building all sorts of Catholic high schools. This is just an example of this. So the new building was completed last May in 1957, and the corporate gift of individual benefactors, the Mother's Auxiliary and the Father's Club. Joseph Allen was the architect, and John McShain was the contractor. See, Oak Knoll began its 35th academic year, September 10th, with an enrollment of 375 students, founded by the Society of the Holy Child Jesus in 1924. The institution is a college preparatory school, including preschool through 12th grade. And actually, this is the article I mentioned here about McShain being used as an envoy to President Eisenhower. This was 1915. This is a year after Eisenhower spoke to Jesuit Georgetown. So I'll bring up those photos. I'll read some of that speech on this video here. Here is from Catholic News Service, March 29th, 1959. Irish president is guest of Philadelphia at Easter. See, Ireland's president and Mrs. Sean T. O'Kelly. Sean T. O'Kelly, Ireland's president, is a devout Catholic. Will be feted in Philadelphia over Easter weekend, accompanied by Frank Aiken, the Irish Minister of Foreign Affairs, and Mrs. Aiken. The Irish president arrived here on Good Friday and was met by Papal Knight Jesuit-trained John McShain, the man who built Washington, Philadelphia contractor and builder, designated by President Eisenhower as his personal representative. You look at that. Designated by President Eisenhower as his personal representative. Well, you know, President Eisenhower's whole career, he had Jesuit-trained, quote, personal representatives telling him what to do at every single point of his career. Like Robert D. Murphy, who was President Eisenhower's foreign policy advisor, or specifically, like, he was his advisor in foreign policy related to Germany during the Second World War. Robert D. Murphy, Jesuit-trained at Marquette. We look at this. So Eisenhower had Jesuit-trained John McShain, a knight of multiple papal knight John McShain, as his personal representative while he met the Irish president, Sean T. O'Kelly. On Holy Saturday, President O'Kelly will place a wreath on the grave of Commodore John O'Barry, the Irish-born Catholic father of the U.S. Navy. Look at that. I believe this guy was Catholic. This Irishman. Fought in the American Revolutionary War. You see, born to a Catholic family. Did you look at that? So, you know, when you start looking into it, it becomes pretty undeniable that the Catholic Church was behind the American Revolution. The Knights of Malta actually almost got into full diplomatic relations with the United States in 1794. I have the documents on my blog and my archive.org page. It was President James Monroe, who wasn't president at the time, but he was a foreign minister. He was writing to the Knights of Malta back and forth. And President James Monroe's younger descendant of him, a younger cousin, Father Andrew Francis Monroe, S.J., became a Jesuit. You see here, John Barry, the Catholic, Irish-born, is the, quote, father of the U.S. Navy. And during World War II, there was a Jesuit priest, Father Joseph O'Callaghan, S.J., who was the official chaplain to the U.S. Navy. And Adolf Hitler's cousin, William Hitler, joined the U.S. Navy. And interestingly, there's a U.S. Navy building in San Diego that has a swastika as the architectural structure of the building. You see here, President Kelly, Ireland Catholic, will visit Independence Hall and will also visit the home of William Penn, Pennsylvania's founder, whose ancestors come from Ireland. Interesting, William Penn, I think this was quoting from James Roosevelt Bailey's book, A History of the Catholic Church in New York. William Penn, I think he brought up Penn. I think Penn brought some Jesuits to his deathbed. William Penn was actually very close with the Jesuits as a Quaker, which kind of sounds as an enigma on the surface, but all you got to do is type in William Penn, Jesuits, Catholic Church, and numerous journal articles will come up that talk about the close relationship with William Penn and the Society of Jesus. President O'Kelly and his party will be guests of the eminent John Cardinal O'Hare, Archbishop of Philadelphia, on Easter. The visitors will assist at Mass in the Cathedral of SS. Peter and Paul will be the luncheon guests of the Cardinal. Later, there will be a reception which will be attended by the Chief Justice of the United States and Mrs. Earl Warren, and Associate Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, Tom Clark, and devout Catholic William J. Brennan and their wives. Would you look at that? Wow. And this is all back in 1959. Now, I'll link these sources in the description. I think this is another article that talked about the dinner here. And actually, it's interesting that they quote George Washington Parker Custis, who's George Washington's adopted son, who went to Jesuit Georgetown. That's George Washington's adopted son, who went to Jesuit Georgetown and was a member of the Philademic Society. But George Washington Parker Custis you see this quote here. He was very supportive of the Catholic Ireland getting independence at this time. Custis was alive in the early 1800s, but they quote him in this article here. This was called Washington Letter here. You see John McShain is referenced. The President of Ireland's visit recalls roles from Irish have had in America from earliest days. Because the Jesuits created America. Okay, but here's the article here. So, and then it's funny because if you watch the video I did on Jesuit donations, you see that a Jesuit Georgetown graduate, Thomas S. Levy, who also went to Jesuit Santa Clara, founded Farmers Insurance Group. But look at this. I'm just going to show you. So this is the Georgetown article from 1958 that has Eisenhower directly on the cover. But look at this. So it says, we offer Georgetown alumni the nation's finest auto insurance service at, quote, at low, careful driver rates. So if you go to Jesuit Georgetown, you get a lower auto insurance rate than anyone else. Isn't that cute? Look at this. Good men wanted. Our expanding growth program at Farmers Insurance depends on getting the right kind of men like you, Georgetown alumni, to join us. Look at that. I'm just going to highlight that. Okay, and you can see here the guy who founded Thomas E. Levy. I thought Thomas S. Levy. Thomas E. Levy, Jesuit trained at Georgetown, founded Farmers Insurance, and his tax-free foundation bankrolls hundreds of millions of dollars to various Catholic schools and causes to this day. You can see here the directors of the Farmers Insurance Group during 1958. Half of them went to Jesuit Georgetown, and George S. Eccles was the director of the Federal Reserve, Federal Reserve Board of Governors. Imagine that. Look at that. Half of them went to Georgetown. Thomas E. Levy, president, went to Georgetown. James W. Hughes at Farmers went to Georgetown. Morgan Doyle went to Georgetown, and E.A. Heffy. I thought that was pretty funny that they were advertising this Farmers Insurance for Georgetown alums. I thought that was pretty comical. But this is the cover of this magazine. Look, this is Eisenhower speaking at Jesuit Georgetown University. There's the bust of Edmund Walsh, S.J., Joseph Stalin's mentor. Edmund Walsh, S.J., who was at the Nuremberg trials to make sure all incriminating evidence of the Catholic Church supporting the Third Reich was taken out of the Nuremberg documents. For instance, how they had to tear down statues of the Virgin Mary that were present at the Nazi death camps. That's right. We see here the Georgetown alumni. You see Pope Pius XII in Georgetown. Would you look at this? See, Pope Pius XII got an honorary degree. So you can see Pope Pius XII with Georgetown at Freiburg Group in September 1957. Would you look at that? Hitler's Pope. Pope Pius XII. You know, when Hitler actually invaded Norway, this is in Aber Manhattan's book, The Vatican and World Politics. He said, oh, we can't be concerned about Norway because there's only 20,000 Catholics in Norway, but there's like 2 million Catholics in Germany. So it's okay. We'll just let Hitler come in and just rape and pillage Norway. We'll let the Nazis come in and do that. Because there's only 2,000 Catholics in Norway. According to Pope Pius XII. And this is another interesting, just going back to John McShain, tying in with Georgetown. He's mentioned in this article here from 1953 Catholic News Service, $14 million fund goal set by Georgetown for 175th anniversary. How fitting that the 175th anniversary of Georgetown was in 1964, the year after they murdered John F. Kennedy and gave J. Edgar Hoover the sword of Ignatius of Loyola at Jesuit Loyola University in Chicago. Same year, 1964, the chairman of the U.S. Strategic Air Command, Thomas S. Power, was made a papal knight of St. Sylvester. But you see here, establishment of a $14 million Greater Jesuit Georgetown Fund has been announced here by Georgetown University, first Catholic college in the United States. Attainment of the fund goal by 1964, the 175th anniversary of the university's founding, would permit completion of 10 proposed building projects and expansion of endowments, scholarships, fellowships, and student loan funds. Thomas C. Egan, Public Utilities Commissioner of Pennsylvania, look at that, has been named chairman of the fund. And the Reverend Charles J. Foley, S.J., a Jesuit, is director of the University Development at Georgetown, will serve as the executive director. Look, honorary chairman are John McShain, the man who built Washington, Washington builder. Would you look at that? John McShain, honorary chairman at the Jesuit Georgetown $14 million fund goal foundation. Would you look at this? Thomas E. Murray. Oh, you can't make this stuff up. Like, are you kidding me? Thomas E. Murray, industrialist and member of the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission, the man who actually engineered the 14-millimeter mortar shell before World War I, which was used to slaughter millions during World War I. Literally. You can't make this up. See, Thomas E. Murray created the 240-millimeter mortar shell, then gets papal knighted. The papacy are a bunch of murdering psychopaths. Why do you think they would knight a guy after creating a weapon of death like this? See, quoting from the book Real Lace by Stephen Birmingham, 1973, page 40. Thomas E. Murray was made a Knight of St. Gregory the Great and a Knight of Malta, two of the most prestigious papal orders. During World War I, meanwhile, his invention for wielding shells was found to be the only one that could be used in the production of the 240-millimeter mortar shell, which earned him, in addition to another fortune in government contracts, a special commendation from the War Department. And the Secretary of War during World War II, Henry Stimson, went to Rome on 3 different occasions. That's right. 3. And Henry Stimson actually was meeting with the Jesuit priest, Father Bernard R. Hubbard, in Alaska. That's in Charles Hyham's book, Trading with the Enemy. You see, the Thomas E. Murray was a devout Catholic. This guy's known as like the whiz of like American electrical power plants as well. You can't make this up, okay? But the Murrays, Thomas E. Murray was on this Georgetown fund. You see here, he became president of the Association of Edison Illuminating Companies, the Murray Manufacturing Company, and eventually headed 5 different corporations. Okay, but this guy was on the list here. Oh, I'm getting some spam. I lost my phone in my room one day, and I used one of the free internet phones, and I got some malware on my computer from that, I think. But you see here, Thomas E. Murray, Papal Knight, alongside Papal Knight John McShain. You see here, Thomas E. Murray received an honorary degree from Jesuit Georgetown in 1939. Would you look at that? And look at this. You literally can't make this up. And Myron C. Taylor, the Knight of Malta, Chairman, CEO of the United States Steel Corporation, who is President Franklin Roosevelt's personal representative to Pope Pius XII and President Harry Truman's personal representative to Pope Pius XII. Myron C. Taylor, also the chairman of the Council on Foreign Relations, business executive and former personal representative of President Roosevelt to His Holiness Pope Pius XII, is on the committee at Jesuit Georgetown. You literally cannot, like, come on. You know, you can see a photo of Myron C. Taylor with Cardinal Spellman, for instance. I think that was from 1940. No, that's a good one. But, you know, you can see, like, Georgetown, it's not a normal university, you know. Like, the university I went to, Brock University, like, you know, just look at the most people go to, you know, average smaller schools, and like, schools do not have connections like this. Okay, look at the Edmund Walsh School of Foreign Service. You'll see that 70% of the current U.S. ambassadors, that's literally 70%, all went to Jesuit Georgetown at that one School of Foreign Service. Like the owner of the LA Dodgers, or I guess he sold the team, Frank McCourt, gave Georgetown $100 million in 2013. Saad Hariri, the president of Lebanon, gave Georgetown $22 million. Like what kind of schools get connections like this? Jesuit schools. Because Jesuit schools aren't schools; they're fortresses. Where the Jesuits through their, this is how, like, if you look how Jesuits have colonized and taken over countries wherever they go, it's through the colleges that they build, that they create their system of control. Eugene P. McCahill, Minneapolis investment counselor, 1921 Georgetown graduate, has been appointed national chairman of the annual giving program. James H. Buchholz, 49 of Kansas City, will serve as director of the program. Georgetown's present physical plant consists of 29 buildings representing investment of more than $18 million. Specific construction projects for which the fund will be used are, quote, a library building, a science building, a graduate building, School of Foreign Service building, language and linguistics building, a law center, a hospital wing, a medical dental school, a school of nursing, and a dining hall. Listed under capital needs are endowed professorships at $150,000, $300,000 each, and endowed scholarships at $15,000 to $30,000 each. Additional annual operating needs of the university are salary increases $250,000 and scholarships and a student aid $350,000. So it's $14 million going to Georgetown University here from the elite aristocratic financial class of America, who all tend to be Catholic or align themselves with the Catholic Church. Like the quote Protestant John D. Rockefeller Sr., for instance, was golfing with the Catholic priest Father John P. Lennon when the Jesuit-trained Chief Justice Edward Douglas White broke up Standard Oil, allowing it to become 25 times bigger by only dissolving the parent company while leaving the 15-plus Standard Oil trusts in existence. What a sham. But I think I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to link these in the chat too, but I recommend you especially go through this Georgetown University Alumni Magazine from 1958. You see here some photos. The President Eisenhower speaks at the Walsh dedication. And there's some photos here. And actually, I got some photos on my blog of this. I got this photo on my blog here from the President's address. There's some more photos from the event. There's the Edmund Walsh A Memorial Building. You see, Dwight Eisenhower actually talks about how he coached football against Georgetown when he coached football at Catholic St. Mary College. Didn't have any military experience to be the head of the United States Army during World War II, but he coached the Catholic football team. So yeah, let's make him the head of the United States Army. Great logic there. And Eisenhower was an absolute coward, and I would even call him just like a pussy. Because, in 1956, Brigadier General Herbert C. Holdridge wrote personally to Dwight D. Eisenhower saying that the Jesuits control the United States government. You can read the letter here. This was on the Alaska Mental Health Bill that was created in 1956 with the aid of Jesuit Father Bernard Hubbard, S.J., the glacier priest. You see here, Herbert Holdridge said that this plot of wickedness revealed in this bill fairly reeks of the evil odor of the black forces of the Jesuits who dominate the Vatican and through officiates in our government dominate our policies. Eisenhower knew about this. And what did Eisenhower do after he was told this by Herbert T. Holdridge? What do you think he did? Well, this is what he did. Went to Georgetown and just sucked up to the Jesuits at Georgetown. Do you look at that? And I recommend you read this. This came from the public papers of the President of the United States, Dwight Eisenhower, containing public messages, speeches, and statements of the President. October 13th, 1958. I recommend you. I'll just read some of it here. It is indeed a memorable occasion which there is dedicated here the School of Foreign Service in the name of Edmund Walsh. Let's see if Eisenhower got the memo from Herbert T. Holdridge at all that the Jesuits were controlling things in the U.S. government. Well, I doubt that highly because Eisenhower's chief representative, personal advisor in the White House, Bernard Michael Shanley, was Jesuit trained at Fordham and a Knight of Malta. Eisenhower was a puppet. In Avram Manhattan's book, Terror of Yugoslavia, the Catholic terrorist Ante Pavelic and his Eustachis actually sent Eisenhower a cable congratulating him on his victory when he became president. This is what President Eisenhower said about the Jesuit priest Edmund Walsh. It is indeed a memorable occasion when there is dedicated here the School of Foreign Service in the name of Edmund A. Walsh. Though the day may be saddened by our knowledge of the passing of a very great man, His Holiness Pope Pius, Eisenhower is calling it Pope Pius a a very great man. And actually, and Eisenhower, his memoir book is called Crusade in Europe. Who launches the Crusades? The Catholic Church does. Why do you think Eisenhower named his book Crusade into Europe? World War II was literally a crusade. And Eisenhower actually says in that book that he went to protect the Vatican during 1944. That was like the head objective. Control F Vatican. In Eisenhower's book, Crusade into Europe, you'll see that the highest priority of Dwight D. Eisenhower and the Allied generals was to protect the Vatican. That was their highest priority. You see here, we have inspiration that should lift up the lives of all of us. Okay, talking about the lives of and remembering the lives of Edmund Walsh and Pope Pius XII. Your president mentioned one of my early associations with your university, a matter of some 5 or 6 years ago. Probably no one knows here that I coached a football team, a service team, playing against Georgetown. Would you look at that? That's Eisenhower speaking. I think it was in the fall of 1924. Lou Little was your coach, and he beat us. But it was a very happy circumstance because it brought me the friendship of another man, Lou Little, who to this day remains my very warm associate and friend. And this all ties into the theme of this video with the Jesuit architect, John McShain. Because you see, John McShain was actually used as a personal representative to President Eisenhower when the Catholic President of Ireland, Sean T. O'Kelly, came to Washington to honor all the early Roman or Irish and Spanish Catholics who founded America. Okay, but we're going back here. So the coach of the Georgetown football team remains Eisenhower's close friend as of 1958, and Eisenhower coached at St. Mary's College for the football team there. This school seems to symbolize not only Father Walsh's hope for peace of the world, but also the great effort he made to promote that concept, and particularly to educate us. Those of us who had the privilege of listening to him over the years, Okay, I was one of those people. Oh, really? In the War College class of 1928 to 1929, he came to a lecture. I saw something that day that I had never hoped to see in any lecture room. After 2 hours, a recess was called in the class as one man demanded that he return to answer questions and give us something more of his knowledge that was so interestingly presented. The subject of that talk was the threat of an atheistic dictatorship poised to the free world, and certainly that threat would grow unless we, all of us, armed ourselves with the spiritual and intellectual capacities that we could develop so that we could get others to understand, and so that we could oppose that threat practically and effectively. He made no wild charges. In fact, it was a speech where every statement was annotated, corroborated by the documents that he himself had procured and brought out of Russia. That's right. Jesuit priest Edmund Walsh was the handler and one of the masterminds of the Bolshevik Revolution and the ascension of Joseph Stalin, who was trained by Jesuits into power in Russia. Why do you think the head of the Soviet Cheka secret police, Felix Dzerzhinsky, was a devout Roman Catholic from Poland who wanted to be a Jesuit priest? Why did Lenin put a monument of the Roman Catholic patron saint of lawyers, Sir Thomas More, in the Soviet Union? Okay, you see here, I got to get going here soon. I'm getting calls. But you see, that series of documents, by the way, was in a suitcase, 2 suitcases. They were filled, and he knew exactly where to go and pick each one and how to read it. I'm not going to read all of this here. But because I do got to get going. But here, as president, the highest executive official of this government, I want to do one other thing to thank the university, Georgetown, and the society. That's the Society of Jesus. Eisenhower wants to thank the Society of Jesus and all of their supporters for the work they are doing in educating soldiers of peace. You see here, I am told of figures that were no later vintage than April of 1957 that 87 of our graduates, or 87 of your Georgetown graduates, are actively working now in the foreign service. Possibly there has been hundreds through these 40 years. That seemed to be the figure now actively working. I would hope your number would increase. I would hope your number would increase. The Georgetown alumnus. Yeah, so, and they did. You know, a Jesuit Georgetown professor, Veet Din, drafted the Patriot Act to make America into a permanent police state. So their numbers sure have increased. And Eisenhower wraps up saying, so to say that I'm honored today by the university, that I'm complimented by its presenting to me its honorary doctorate, is a great understatement. I assure you that the presence here of these dedicated men and instructors and students in this audience is an inspiration, a memory that I shall carry with me. Thank you. Yeah, Georgetown at this time had their MK Ultra research, or the CIA had an MK Ultra mind control facility at Georgetown University. But yeah, keep up the great work, Georgetown. Keep up the great work, says Dwight D. Eisenhower. But yeah, I think I got to go there, guys. I just wanted to highlight you see, John McShain was a personal envoy to Eisenhower, but this guy's like the man who built Washington, the guy who designed the Pentagon. The Pentagon is designed off of a Jesuit war villa, the Palazzo Farnese in Caparola, Italy. And why do you think so many U.S. generals go to Jesuit Georgetown? All you got to do is the Jesuit Georgetown alumni list. You know, currently Peter Chiarelli, a former four-star U.S. general in Iraq, educated at Jesuit Seattle University, is now on the board of directors at L3 Harris Corporation, the company that's making the invasive police stingray devices, which are absolutely shredding the last little tiny little bit of privacy we have left. But I'm going to see if anyone's in the comments here. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Great point, Salvation. You know, interestingly, when this J.J. Murphy had this quote, just when Hitler met with the Catholic priest, fascist dictator of Slovakia, literally an ordained Catholic priest, was in charge of a fascist state of Slovakia. He was rounding up Jews in the concentration camp as a Catholic priest. He was saying that he killed the Jews better than Hitler did as a Catholic priest. But when Hitler went to meet Monsignor Joseph Tizzo, he met him at a Jesuit retreat house in Germany, taken there by private military planes. What's oh, thanks, Lauren, appreciate it. What's your government at, XP? I'll definitely I got enough research. I can do videos on any country. Israel? Oh, for sure, yeah, I can do a video on the Israeli government. The Vatican is in control there. I posit that they actually created the modern state of Israel. That's why Theodore Herzl had his private meeting with the Pope before Israel was created. And the Vatican owns the largest hotel in Jerusalem, the Notre Dame Center. They got full tax-exempt status. Numerous Israeli diplomats and Supreme Court justices come from Jesuit Georgetown University, for instance. Yes, I'll do a future video on Israel for sure. Interestingly, the first Israeli ambassador to China, Zev Sufat, went to Jesuit Georgetown, and he claimed that Israeli foreign policy with China was being controlled from like an alternate location. I'm paraphrasing those words. You can see that on Zev Sufat's Wikipedia page. First Israeli ambassador to China was trained by Jesuits. You'd think that he wouldn't be so if Israel was really in control of the world, getting into diplomatic negotiations with a powerhouse like China. Why would they send a Jesuit-trained diplomat to do that, huh? Because the Jesuits are in control of Israel. Absolutely, yeah. The Jesuits did, yeah. And the Jesuit Joseph Rettinger, I'll just show you this really quick here. I have Joseph Rettinger's book, his memoir book that I scanned onto our autobiography, or his autobiography that I put on archive.org. Reddit posted on the Rome Rules subreddit a while back, and the Bilderberg own website admits that the Jesuit who founded the Bilderberg group was meeting with Zionists at the time of the founding of Israel. You see here, the Jesuit Joseph Rettinger was wanted by the general of the Jesuits, the Polish Count Liudachowski, for the creation of a world government with the British Federalist Arthur Capel, the creation of the State of Israel. Look, The Jesuit general. This is coming from BilderbergMeetings.co. The Jesuit general wanted the creation of the state of Israel. Look, the creation of the state of Israel. This is what the Jesuit general, Count Władimir Lidichowski, instructed Joseph Rettinger, S.J., the founder of the Bilderberg Group, to do, in collaboration with some of the leaders of the Zionist movement, such as Chaim Weizmann and Nahum Sokolov. You see? It's right. This is, and you see, this is coming from bilderbergmeetings.co.uk/Joseph Rettinger. It's right on the website that Rettinger was instructed by the Black Pope to create the state of Israel. Okay, but I think that's all for this one, YouTube. This kid, the Republican Party plans to take violent Hong Kong protesters. Yeah, that whole thing. I have to look into the details of the current Hong Kong protests, how they've been unfolding the last 2 weeks. But what the long-term goal of Hong Kong is to have it gradually amalgamated into China. China is the Jesuits' baby. Like, the communist Chinese government built a statue of the Jesuit priest Matteo Ricci in 2010. Carrie Lam, the chief executive of Hong Kong, is a devout Catholic. The Jesuit America magazine even wrote an article on how much of a Catholic Carrie Lam is, for instance. Donald Trump, Jesuit trained, has come out and said that he's not going to say anything about the Hong Kong protests in fear that it's going to harp in a trade deal with China. So ultimately, it's being the stage is being set for, Hong Kong to just be swallowed up by the Chinese monster, which is what will happen. Absolutely, the Heritage Foundation was created by Jesuits. Ed Follner, one of the founders of the Heritage Foundation, went to Jesuit Regis University. See? Credited with establishing the U.S. conservative tank Heritage Foundation, served as its president from 1977 to 2013, again from 2017 to 2018. President of the Heritage Foundation. Follner attended Immaculate Conception High School, which was designed by John McShain, the Roman Catholic architect we were covering. And Edwin Follner went to Jesuit Regis University, and then he went to Jesuit Georgetown, just for good measure. And then he became an analyst for the Center for Strategic and International Studies at Jesuit Georgetown for triple good measure. Would you look at that? Founder of the Heritage Foundation. But it's the Jews, though, right? And actually, you can see one of the recent heads of the Anti-Defamation League. This is on my community page here. One of the recent heads of the ADL was a Catholic, Abraham Foxman, born in Catholic Poland, baptized Catholic, and Anti-Defamation League director Abraham Foxman was honored by the Archdiocese of Krakow with the Pope John Paul II Medal of Honor. You see, this whole fighting hate dogma, it's completely Jesuitical. It was actually Jesuit-trained Pierre Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, who passed the, quote, hate crime laws into Canada in 1970. It was Jesuit-trained Pierre Trudeau who passed the hate crime laws into Canada. Okay. You see here that the Pope is controlling, Zionism. It's very, very evident. You see the ADL director being honored with the Pope John Paul II Medal of Honor. The Jewish pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, who was like a papal court Jew. You can see a photo of Jeffrey Epstein with Pope John Paul II. Well, I think the media has completely stopped talking about that case. Yeah, I think that's all for this one, YouTube. Peace and love. And, his dad was a trustee at Loyola too. No, great information. Yeah, that's a very possible. That's an end game. I think before a military invasion, Eric, of Russia and China into the U.S., I think they will try to more economically conquer the U.S., more primarily so with China. Like you saw, Jesuit-trained Bill Clinton of Georgetown brought China into the World Trade Organization, which sold thousands and thousands of American jobs, thousands. And Bill Clinton, Jesuit trained, gave China the top American supercomputing technology. And then only 9 years later, China had the fastest supercomputer in the world. So I think the first step for the Chinese imperialistic march will be more economically. And, a lot of the Roman Catholic countries of Central America, like Venezuela, hyper-Catholic colony Venezuela, is getting communist China to build their camera systems. Catholic Bolivia is the same thing, Catholic Argentina, Catholic Ecuador. But, yeah, I think that's all for this one, YouTube. Peace and love, and Namnast. I'll catch you on the next one. All the best.